for collaboration, I feel there's no way any of us or anybody or any company would exist without collaboration.
Welcome back to the Brandwise Live, and this podcast, we've been having conversations, right, regarding a lot of things, especially in the creative space. I'm having today to join me, Mr. Abubakar Ismail El Sadiq. A lot of you don't know now, so so popularly known. Please, this is supposed to be a serious session, right? Yeah. So, a lot of you know him as Mistalogic. I've followed his work for a very long time. He's an excellent designer, and he has worked on a lot of projects, which you guys actually know. Should I expose you? Just for PR.
Not
Please now. No, that particular one. Let them know who is here. Make I go ahead. So the popular E-Naira project, this is the man that, was behind it. So put your hands together for we are not here to joke. Please. We are not So Mr. Logic, thank you very much for coming, and a whole amazing thing. I think the team he's currently working on launched an app. So before we go, we're going to download that app and check it out for yourself. The app is supposed to be a credit card, more or less. Yeah. So you're going to tell us more about that application and how we can actually, use it. A credit card. You know what a credit card is? You can buy with the card on credit.
Yeah, basically.
Do you get it? So that's what it is. So before the end of this segment, I think he's going to talk more about that project. So we're having Mr. Logic here. So Mr. Logic, thank you very much for coming here. By the way, he's a married man, So in case you people online, say, find the bone of my bone. No, bone don't collect in bone.
I tell you.
So thank you very much for coming. Right?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. So, when we talk about competence, for somebody to know what he's doing in his job, right? What is it exactly, and how can somebody build competence in their job? Because, if you've looked for people to work with, if you've actually looked for people to work with, you'll be thinking that in your space there are a lot of people.
Yeah.
Until you go out and start looking for people to work with, you realize that you interview like 100 people, you not one person that is good enough. I mean, barest minimum. So, like when we talk about competence, right? People being competent in their field or what they do, you think that you have a lot of people that does the same thing, that does a good job, that that this person, once you say, videographers there everywhere, designers there everywhere, until you start looking, until you need one.
Yeah.
So what exactly do you think is the cause of that grayish? It looks like people sabi. Then if you come close,
I understand. So I think I would say from my own perspective, a lot of people skip that early stages of learning their skills, right? So we have a lot of, like, for example, in UI UX now, we have the fundamental parts, right? And then we have the, intermediate parts, and then we have the, experts, right? A lot of people skip that fundamental part. Take, for example, if you are maybe trying to start a course or you're trying to learn a new skill, most of what those people do is mostly, they take you from the ground up, right? And a lot of people struggle with being patient, right, to understand the core fundamentals of what they are trying to learn, right? As a programmer, you need to start maybe with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? As a designer, you need to start from, the understanding the basic principles of design, right? And then you work your way up the ladder. But a lot of times, people see other people do things online, right? And they feel that's the first place to start, right? You see somebody that has, you don't know the story, right? You see somebody that has gone through a lot of, you don't know what they've gone through, like all the things they have gone through to get to where they are. You just assume that's the starting point, right? So most of the time that usually affects the mindset of creative professionals or even anybody in any creative field at all, right? So many a times over time, those basic skills that you refuse or you are not patient enough to,
will start haunting
adopt,
you.
will start affecting you over time, right?
Wow.
And those things sort of they compound, right? Especially when you happen to find yourself in a space where those relevant skills that you need to start off properly, right? I believe we spoke about some basic things in design that, just like an example of what you were posting of recent, that you said a billboard is not a newspaper, right? So some people don't understand visual hierarchy, right? They don't understand why it's important that a particular set of information is more valuable than 2 pages of, you understand? So so most of those things start affecting you over time, right? And eventually when you get to that point where you want to apply for a job or maybe showcase your skills or portfolio, you don't have the right set of data, right, to back up that portfolio. You basically just toss in some mock-ups or some visual designs, some all those things, right? And somebody that is looking at your portfolio, right, that is looking to employ you, thinks there's no storytelling, right? There's no story, and there's nothing that helps me understand your background, helps me know that this is who I'm going to employ, right? And those are sort of the issues that I feel create that.
See, there's this thing you just mentioned now, the mock-up world, the mock-up culture. There's something called there's something called the mock-up culture. You do anything, slap it on mock-up, and it makes sense. People will jump in and shout hallelujah.
Yeah.
So now, and then there is this one, we know as Instagram designers. All right. I mean, a lot of designers on Instagram, but there is a group of people called Instagram designers, right?
Example like me.
No. You pass that phase. Like, there are creatives that believe that, showing off what they think, like, they have this urge to follow a particular idolo. All right. Or then they post or create things that look like what they've done, right?
Yes.
And then when you look at it, you know that this person is not trying to be original. I mean, bye to original, but then again, this person is not yet there.
Yeah.
It's not even there, and you can see the person not trying to be there at all. But eventually, the person is posting, just for the sake of posting, just because you people tell them show your work. All right. Now, ambitious person don't go show in work now. In work did not work. So how do we cut the pressure, right, to show what is not ripe? Because someone will say, "Oh, we keep showing it; it's going to be fresh. It's going to get better." And that person will say, "Oh, just wait until you get better, then you show." Now, so then pursue some people from Niger Graphics. There's one group like that. They're pursuing people. Say, if you don't know what you're doing, you have to get that from this place. So it's now like, okay, how do people that don't know? How do they express themselves early? Now, I understood all their sides and all the arguments. But the problem now is there are people that don't really care whether their work is good or not. And somehow, they are the ones that are getting the jobs.
Yeah. So, I think that Instagram designer effect, all of us had, that at one point or the other, right, in our careers, and even for me, right, I feel the concept of showing your work is not necessarily. I don't think it's necessarily about how often you show it, or whatever reason behind why you are showing what you are showing is what you actually show. Because what you are showing us tells us who you are, tells us like there's this genuine, feeling that we get that, oh, this is Mistalogic, this is catchy, right? So that small, tiny branding effect that you get from actually being your true self is lost at some point, right, in our careers, especially for the current, or should I say, the modern, the newbies, right? So for me, when I started out, one of the uniqueness I brought into play was the fact that I'm good at sketching, right? And anybody that sees a very sharp logo is sketched and then is posted online. For some reason, this has to be Mistalogic. That was 2019, 2020, 2021, right? And I try to leverage on that, right? I've seen a lot of people do their thing, right? I've seen some people that I see as my idolo, right? People like Finyi, Adeni, right? Leye, and the rest of them. But I know I had my own original idea, right, of who I want to be as a creative, where I was headed, right? And I try to leverage more on that, right? And it's got to a point where those people I considered my idolo became more or less like, you know, my friends. You know, we think on a higher level together and stuff like that. So back to that idea of Instagram designers. Being a mentor on ADP list, I usually advise, because some people come for just career advice. How do I get started? How do I get there, right? So for somebody that is a designer, I usually advise start by, you know, especially when you are not, you know, start by understanding the basic principle of visual design. You understand basic principle of visual hierarchy, right? And then just go down dig deep into the basics, right? It doesn't make sense from beginning, but eventually, over time, right, it starts making sense. It starts making sense because those skills that you think doesn't make sense. I used to say, as a UI UX designer, as a graphic designer, any graphic designer can create a UI. I can look at what other people have been doing, and then I'll just open a Photoshop and create a frame and start copying exactly what I'm seeing, right? But they cannot be a user experience designer, right? So if you understand visual hierarchy, it's easy for you to, you know, man any aspect of design, right? If you understand visual hierarchy, visual design, the basic principles and everything, it's very easy for you to like own any aspect of design, right? I'm not talking about motion. I'm not talking about 3D. It can affect them in a way, right? But when we say illustration, logo design, you know, all those things, they are very important because you use colors, right? You use, at some point, you use typography, you use all these little things that you use shapes, you use forms and everything, right? So it's very important that you understand the core fundamentals, right? Even for developers. If you don't know things like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, then you come to the high-level stuff, right? For back-end, front-end, you don't understand things like arrays, loop, function, class. There's no way you can man any programming language. Wow. So some people just go to things like, oh, I see people are writing Node for front-end. I want to also start writing Node, right? But how do people get to Node? Do you understand? So basically, the idea for me is to get to the root of the problem, right? Get to the root of that thing that you're trying to solve, and then start building yourself up, right? So if I am mentoring someone on ADP list, I think I left that part somehow. I usually tell them, start from that part, and then when you get to the point where you feel you are comfortable, you know, holding the mouse, you know, making design decisions, you can look at what other people have done, right? And replicate it.
Yeah.
It helps you make even better design decisions, right? But here's the caveat. Don't post it.
Okay.
Right? Don't post it yet. When you understand why certain people take certain decisions, you look at the problems around you, right? For brand designers or marketing designers, we go to the market, to the supermarket, we see Nescafe is not designed well. We attempt to do a better design, right? Based on what we have learned, right? And we as UI designers, we see GT Bank app or Facebook or something. We say, oh, if I were the one, I would have loved it to be like this. We attempt to do a better design, right? So these are the best ways to now show your work.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be, you just see somebody design something and you do the same thing, or you do like a mediocre version of whatever that person did, and then you try to post it. So automatically you are creating a dead career from the scratch.
From the beginning.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So it's just like a recipe for
Dead on
failure.
arrival.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel that's
All right, thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
That brings me to the second question, right?
Yeah.
Right, in this creative space, a very interesting space, right? It feels like a music space in a way, and where a lot of people, all of us, most people, don't know the power of collaboration, right? Because of that, you see the way people hype themselves, right? And you see the way people carry themselves. Sometimes you can't even talk to some creatives because they are too busy to talk to you. They are busy. They are working on $1 million project. You understand my point? They don't have your time. They are too busy to talk to you. And and they forget that I used to tell some of my guys this. It is not the amount of time you spend on a project. It's the amount of project you're able to do in a short time.
Yeah.
That brings the fortune.
Exactly.
Do you understand? Yeah. So what have collaboration done for you, and what do you think? See, you don't have to hold back in this one, because I know that people have shown you shege, right? You've also shown other people in one way or the other. Do you understand? Yeah. So what has collaboration done for you? All right. And how do you think we can leverage collaboration to not just expand network? Because when you collaborate on a project, or you go under an umbrella that nobody knows actually the people behind, you tend to deliver better job.
Yeah.
Right. And but then there are other underlying factors right there. But what do you think about collaboration, especially for you, and then in Nigeria, creatives that are in this space? What do you think about the way they approach collaboration? That is wrong. Let's start from there. And then you don't have to hold back. In fact, you can call people's name, but don't call my name. No.
Okay. I think for me, right, collaboration has been a very crucial part of my career, and I believe we have a very, very almost, I would say, like a very bad approach to collaboration nowadays. And it doesn't really have anything to do with the fact that you are trying to, reach out to somebody that, Chris, they do not even reply Chris do, right? And you're trying to reply, you're trying to go to their DM. So I'll attempt this in, maybe I'll start from that whole concept of, you reach out to somebody in their DM, and then I'll work my way up. So most of the times I've seen a lot of, right, quote unquote, senior designers, right, on Twitter. They'll say, you come to me in my DM and you just say, hello, how are you doing? Good afternoon, sir. Good day, sir. And then you keep quiet. If you approach me in my DM and you say, hey, Mistalogic, what's up? I'm trying to do this, and that. Or I have a portfolio review I would love you to jump on, right? Just go straight to the point. It's easy for me to decide whether I want to involve myself in whatever you are, whatever you are trying to, involve me in, or whatever, right? But if you don't go straight to the point, or I don't know if this is exactly what you want, right, I'll be skeptical to reply. Right, because you might as well want to ask for money, which I don't have.
Yeah. Which a lot of people do when they come to your DM.
You understand?
They're coming to ask bros.
Most of the times, if you go straight to the point, it helps. Right? And if that person sees what you like, your request, and they didn't reply, that means they are not interested, or maybe they have a lot of requests and they just missed your own request. But if you just say good morning, or how are you, or hello. For me, I feel that's very bad communication. So that aside, the second thing is, for collaboration, I feel there's no way any of us or anybody or any company would exist without collaboration, right? And why I said it was a crucial part of my career is personally, I've strived to do it on my own, especially, posting my portfolio works, sharing my skills, the little I have to offer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for some reasons, I only got I got the very best of collaboration when I got the very best of my portfolio for the very first time,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is me getting featured on Behance,
Okay.
right?
Wow.
I did that when I collaborated with a friend,
Oh wow.
right? And it's really good that we were able to meet each other on that level, right? Because this is somebody that we were first potential enemies, right? And we're not really enemies, but we started off, we were like that Nigeria design as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did like a annual challenge. So we're supposed to design brand identity, and I and that guy were supposed to do like a face off in 2021, and yeah, and not to brag in any way, I won, right?
Okay.
And for some reasons, you would expect a bad blood to happen, but this guy, I saw his story and then I replied, and he was so warm, and we spoke, and it was so interesting, and like we started talking, and we started talking about a project, and for some reasons the idea was clicking, and before the end of that same year, 2021, we shot our first project as a collaboration project on Behance,
Wow.
right? And the following year, a few months later, we were featured on Behance,
Wow.
right? And that was conveniently the best project on my Behance portfolio.
Wow.
It's not like it's a big deal, right? But it's not like much of a big deal, but the idea of collaboration was what sparked that.
Yeah.
So that's one of the parts where I would say collaboration has really helped me in particular. And I feel it's good that people don't get scared of, jumping into people's DM, right? Just write a very clean, a very nice message, address that person and ask if you
Like
could
straight to the point.
exactly
message.
if you have a conversation with them, or you like to collaborate with them, or you like to be mentored by them. And these are the things that by the time you talk to 5, 6, 7 people, right? So even when I first reach out to people like Leye, right, on Instagram, most of these people were not, you say they have less than 1,000 followers, 2,000 followers, and it was so easy back then, right? But you can't, I probably would not be able to reach out to, say, Tola Alabi, right? I probably would not get his attention because he was on a different level than us, right? Around that, even up to date, right? The same thing applies to, maybe you say, for example, you reach out to you around that time, right? You no go reply. You'll be like, who the hell is this?
What are
right?
you talking about?
Then, or you go to reach out to somebody like maybe Chris Do, Matthew, and Sina, all these top tier people. But when you reach out to, you carefully select those people that you feel, I mean, we are probably
That
not
around you,
exact-
they're always gonna be
yeah,
those people.
exactly. So if you do that, it's easier to get, like by the time you reach out to 4 or 5 people, you connect, right, with at least 1, 2 of them, right? And that 1 or 2 persons, might actually be a big deal for your career. So coming back to that same guy that we worked on a Behance case study, as of today, we started an agency together, right? And we are low-key building it up gradually, right? So this idea of collaboration is not just to work for, just like your own benefit, right? But the value you provide, right? It's sort of like a door. It opens door of opportunity. So for me now, the little people I've collaborated with have like created some opportunities for me. So I have a lot of friends that are brand designers. When they receive a request for UI UX, they say, "Oh, I know somebody."
Yeah,
Right.
fantastic.
So those are the little benefits that comes along with collaborating with people, knowing people, relating with people on a high level, and then people know that this is what you do. Right. So if you say, from that point of view, if you look at it from that point of view, for me, I usually say it's 90% of my job, my freelance gigs, and every other thing that I earn today come from either referral or recommendation.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible that it's not like you are not that good, right? But a recruiter goes to scout for potential employees and your portfolio is in the number 400 and something, but by the time they have looked at 100 portfolios, they're already tired.
Yes.
You understand? So sometimes it happens, right? And so for me, 90% of most of what I earn, my job, my gigs, they come from people saying, oh, I know somebody that does this. In fact, there was a time a guy was requesting for a designer on Twitter, right? It was somebody I mentored on ADP list that just tagged my name, and me and the guy, we jump on a call and wave. So these are just the power of collaboration.
I mean that's I know a lot of people are listening to to this, and they don't quite understand that there's a reason why there are other people that have or do the same or similar things I do that have other competencies, right? If I see a UI designer that has ability to write code, right, is a plus.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And if I see a UI designer that can also do logos, right, is a plus. Because there will never be a time you'll be able to do all of that at the same time. Even if you do, you are not going to be that good. And you will not be able to charge what you think, is good enough. Because, business people don't think that they need to do everything. Business people just look for people that do things and find a way to brand it and sell it to the masses.
Yeah.
And they pay them a lot of money. Yeah. But creative people have a way we think, and which is a very limited way of thinking, right? We think that by power and by might, we'll be able to achieve a lot, forgetting that by just knowing who knows who, knowing things, knowing people around, people that you can actually work with can make difference. That brings us to this third conversation, which is networking. All right? You just mentioned that some people jump into some people's DM. This one, I don't know if people still do, but it's an old trick now. Who goes into people's DM to ask them, how are you? And we are not friends, right? Yeah. If I'm coming to your DM,
you get.
I'm asking you, how are you?
Yeah.
Like, did I tell you I was sick? Like, I made a post, but don't ask me. Yeah, like, can we...
Yeah, exactly.
What can we do?
Go straight to the point.
Right? Because there's no time for me to start responding to you when you are not my cousin, right? And when you're also trying to shoot your shot at something or someone to work with, I think there is this thing that happens. We assume that they're not going to respond.
Yeah.
All right, we are not going to respond, and most times they're not going to respond because maybe they have a lot of DMs, they have a lot of requests. They did a sponsored ad or something. Their DMs are really full and all of that stuff, right? I know that, but let's look at networking in its general sense, right? Networking, we know we're going to network up and we're going to network down or sideways, right? So, but what do you think? Right? Why do you think? I know you've mentioned that are based on collaboration, but this is based on your colleagues and all of that. But networking, you might want to. So, how do you think people should go about networking and not just coming into people's DMs and their lives to ask them, boss, how do I get clients? Because that's their ultimate question. Boss, how do I create content? Boss,
how do I make my first 1 million?
How do I make my first 1 million naira? Boss. You have boss will be flying around.
Yeah, exactly.
Boss will be flying around your DM. Anyhow, boss this, boss that, and when it comes to maybe participating in the things you do or in the events you go for, all right, because that's actually how I got connected to a lot of people. Events.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
If you have event, I will turn up there, right? And see the things, get the way you think, then I know how to approach you.
Yeah.
Right? But there's this guy where I don't try talk to. This guy don't really talk to me. They tell me, say, now they give me excuse for the guy, but that's no problem. We'll talk about it later. So so what do you think? How do you think people should network better? Because it's very important. We need to make this money.
Yeah, I will start from what you said, events, right? From an event, a lot of times people shy away from approaching other people, right? Event is not about I come to this place now and I listen and I go. In fact, that's almost like the negative, the absolute. This, in fact, it's almost like you wasted your time, right?
Wow.
So if you come, you listen, right? You benefit, you know, all the nuggets of, you know, knowledge and all the small, yeah, exactly. But the biggest benefit is if you can, you walk away with like someone's phone number or, you know, you get to connect with people. And when you did like this, it's not like a female. I know. When you walk away with, like, you know, you meet somebody, you get their number, you guys connect on a high level, and you talk about career, you talk about, you know, opportunities and stuff like that. You got so connected that you got the person's number, and you guys continue that conversation outside of that event. That's a win for me in an event, right?
Yeah.
Because most of the times there are events that, to be very honest, some of those information that you went to get from that event, you probably know some of them. You've come across some of them at some point, or you can find them somewhere. You understand? So for those kind of scenarios, the best gift you can give yourself is you get to link up with somebody at that event, right? And you know, that's value. You understand? So if you go to an event and, you know, you see somebody that is probably you've met before online, or you've seen them, walk up to them, right? Hello, good afternoon. Now, it can go two ways.
Yeah.
They could choose to ignore you, and no problem,
Yeah.
right? That's, for me, no problem, right? So they could choose to ignore you, but most likely they will reply. They will turn and say, oh, hello. And sometimes when you see somebody, because I've faced something like that before, and I came to realize that they actually did not hear, or they didn't even know that I was talking to them, you know.
They're overwhelmed now.
Exactly. So in events, especially if the person is a speaker, you know, there's a lot of hey, hello, hi, hello, you know, and you probably don't know they are talking to you. So, you know, if you are able to walk up to somebody and try to connect, at least try to relate, you know, this is a problem for introverts, right? But you try to relate. And
introverts like you.
No, not really. So yeah, that's one side of it. And then also engaging in online communities, right? A lot of all these online communities, Discord channels, you know, Telegram channels, right? You know, some of those places, personally, I've found opportunities in some of those places, right? So what usually happens is, in fact, I've had the opportunity of working on a complete digital product because I was in a community, right? So I saw someone talking about their product and this and that, and I went behind the scene and I pitched myself to them, right? I went to their DM and I pitched myself, and somehow it made sense, right? So I didn't stop there. So I went ahead and did, when he talked to me about their product, I went and did a little bit of, just a small prototype of some pages, and then I sent to them that, as opposed to what you were doing by yourself, this is what I would bring to the table. And that was how I closed the deal.
Wow.
So if you are able to, you know, engage in online communities, engaging doesn't mean go scroll, see information, like, comment. No. Sometimes you can actually reach out to someone on DM. Sometimes you can even drop a portfolio link, right? If the community allow it, right? Sometimes even WhatsApp groups, group chats and all those things, it's good to sort of engage in those kind of communities. And sometimes, even from WhatsApp community, somebody will reply you privately after you sharing some of your works and say, oh, I didn't know you do motion design. How far now? I won't work on this. And you guys can collaborate on a project, right? So that's also one other thing. And I feel networking also makes sense in a way if you, as a tech person, right? I use tech because this is like more generic, right? If you sort of learn to participate in open source projects, right?
Okay.
Yeah, there are some projects that, you know, from that project, it opens room for other opportunities, right? So if you collaborate on open source projects, right, like free, or even for us that are not, right, doing more of open source, even if it's like a random project, right? I reach out to my friend, I reach out to this person, the three of us. This is a motion designer, I'm a UI designer, he is a brand designer. We work on a product, brand, design, everything. And then we now share it online. You know, that also makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
And from there, some people that see that work, they tend to, they don't know, they just know that you are part of the project.
Yeah,
That's
they don't know
important.
the part.
They don't know the exact. So it's very important that you're actually part of that project, right? So networking is very diverse. Even directly and indirectly, there are ways you can network that, you know, it doesn't have to be the most obvious ones.
Yeah,
and it will really, really help you.